Everyone, this is the Tripwire Podcast. I'm your host, Zach, at FF Tulip Batman on Twitter. We are part of the Triple Play Fantasy family. We're also part of the Fantasy Points Media Group Network. Thank you for joining us. I know you're probably wondering, why are we doing a waiver wire show after Week 17 has already happened? And we're about to finish Week 17 Monday Night Football. That's because we're not talking waiver wires anymore. This is actually going to be talking about our charity league that Nicole and I was in. So I would like to introduce my co-manager, Nicole. She's at Nicole Arlene on Twitter. We did the Pros with Joe's charity league this year. It was a lot of fun. So welcome, Nicole. Nicole, thank you for joining us. So first off, I guess, how much experience do you have in fantasy football?
Hey, Zach, super excited to be joining you guys. Well, unlike probably most people that you chat with, I actually have very little to no experience with fantasy football and honestly American football as it is. I'm originally Venezuelan, so I grew up like watching and playing the kind of football that you play with your feet, not American football. So it's been a huge adjustment for me. But as we were talking about, and we've talked about before, kind of joining these fantasy leagues has not only been a good time just to bond with friends, but it's taught me a lot about the sport, which is kind of fun to not just go to sporting events for the atmosphere, but then I actually get what's going on.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's been great getting to play with you. So we did a work league, feels like 2 years
Yeah.
ago now, I think. Or
Ah,
maybe it
two
was actually
years.
last season. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know you were just getting into it.
Yeah.
Half the league was just, we were all playing for fun. It was just bragging rights. I did terrible. It was fantastic losing to everybody as you all made fun of me as, as I create
It
content.
was so fun, and that was actually the first league. I don't remember if I told you that, but that was the first league I ever did. And because I had done once that like somebody else I was like, hey, can you just pick the stuff for me? And every week I literally would be like, hey, can you log on for me and just do the thing? But then that year I was like, okay, no, I have to figure this out because everybody's so into it and it looks like so much fun. Like I want to be part of this. But I did pretty well actually. I got, I guess, beginner's luck. I think I made it to the playoffs, but that was about it.
I
I
think you
was
did.
just
Yeah.
short. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, that's all that matters really, is
Hey,
making
yeah,
the playoffs. And then after that, it's just
exactly.
gravy. So we did the Pros with Joe's League. So for those of you who don't know what that is, there was 56 teams. So we had 56 quote unquote pros, or fantasy analysts that were then matched up with we'll call him quote unquote Joe. So it could be anybody. Some of them were also other fantasy analysts that bid in, but Nicole had to um, basically donate money to the charity of my choice, and everyone that donated, every dollar got you a ticket, if you will, for an entry to get a chance to play with me. Nicole ended up winning that, so we got to co-manage a team together for the season. So our first pick, we were the eighth pick. So at the 108, we took Stefan Diggs. So I have his jersey.
Go
Um,
Bills.
and we got the Bills going. So he did great for us at the beginning of the season. We were off to a hot start. Then our team was a struggle bus in the middle of the season, and then we bounced back and recovered. We dealt with a lot of injuries. It was a tough league. It's a 14-team division, so and it was basically all flex for the most part. I think it's one QB all flex. So it was just, so there were some teams that were all running back, some teams were all wide receiver. We were just trying to draft best player available, and we were fortunate enough to be one of the final 20 teams that made the playoffs, which was very exciting. We snuck in there the last day on points, and then we immediately got knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. It went from 20 teams to 8 teams. We were the underdog by far going into it, so it was just a lot of
Yep.
fun to be a part of it. But the real reason why I wanted to bring you on was to talk about the charity that you and I were playing for. So we were playing for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So I just put that at the bottom there. You guys can see that on the ticker. That's where you can donate to. I just wanted to quickly talk about the organization real quick, and why I chose it as my charity to represent the pros. So the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society funds leading edge research for every type of blood cancer, including leukemia, lymphoma, myeloma, and other rare types of blood cancers. As the largest nonprofit funder of cutting edge blood cancer research to advance cures, LLS has invested more than $1.5 billion in cancer research since they started in 1949, leading to breakthroughs all over their industry, while also improving and saving lives of many patients. Over the last 5 years, LLS has helped advance 75% of almost 100 FDA-approved blood cancer treatment options, And approximately every 3 minutes, one person in the US is diagnosed with leukemia, lymphoma, or myeloma. And then just to kind of bring it back into fantasy football, if you remember, James Conner had Hodgkin's lymphoma, and John Mechie, who was the rookie for the Houston Texans, who's been out this entire year, he is currently battling leukemia. That is what he's dealing with. So we do know some NFL players that are either dealing with or have been touched by blood cancers. And then me personally, my dad had Hodgkin's lymphoma back in 2010, just the beginning of my junior year of college. We found out that he had Hodgkin's lymphoma, so the same as James Conner. So obviously really scary, but he had a positive prognosis. He was able to beat it, which was great. And then a few years later, it actually came back, and he had to fight it again. Again, we were very fortunate that he beat it again, and he's now gone just over 5 years. I think he's at 6 now, so he's officially considered cancer free, which is very exciting. But he does a lot of charity work with LLS. They do a Light the Night charity event every fall. It's all over the country. So he does one where he lives locally up in Maryland. So that's very exciting. So it meant a lot to me to represent this charity, this organization. So that's why it was great to have Nicole donate and to be my co-manager. It's been a lot of fun. And that's why I also chose the Stefon Diggs Crucial Catch Intercept Cancer themed jersey, since he was our first pick. And I wanted to donate more to cancer research. So if you would like to donate to LLS, or if you're so inclined, or any other cancer charity out there, it is at lls.org. So Nicole, obviously you donated the most money to the charity, which gave you the best odds to be my co-manager, which fortunately you won. But I guess why do you support LLS? Like, what does it mean to you?
Yeah. So I'm gonna try to say this without getting emotional, but I actually just recently lost my mom to cancer. She had a 2-year battle with endometrial cancer that had metastasized. So although it wasn't, in the blood cancer family, I still find a lot of I try to find a lot of ways to help just in whatever way I can when it comes to just people affected by cancer. I also lost my grandfather in 2001 to bone cancer that has spread to his blood as well. So he ended up his ended up metastasizing as well. So just something that's obviously very dear to my heart. Obviously, right now, very raw, very something that's really affecting me on a day to day. It's been it's a huge journey that we had gone on with my mom, and kind of like you said, it's just something that like it's very scary. You don't know what's going to happen, and it's something that is so unpredictable as well. Some people have some amazing responses to these treatments, and she had almost reached remission at one point, but unfortunately, because it had spread, the sort of resurgence was a little bit more aggressive than the initial diagnosis. So, obviously dedicating this to my mama. But I think that's something that's so important to me because I saw being in that position as the caretaker, as a daughter, how much impact these organizations have, not just on the research, not just on the partners that they have in the healthcare world, but also on the patients, on the caretakers, the resources that they're able to provide. I met some of the most amazing people, and I will say this, and I felt this way before, but I think more so now than ever. I hope that for as long as I am on this earth, like I want to make sure that I'm helping not just people affected, but their families, and find ways to help them get resources, because that's what helped me, be it like care groups, medicine, day-to-day items, things like something that I never even thought of. Like there's like these pills, because for those of you who don't know, when you are in chemo or any kind of like cancer treatment, food starts tasting different. Your sense of smell changes. Like there's so many things that it affects you, and it's not just like, oh, I'm losing my hair. Like I think that's the first thing people think of, but no, like your sense of smell, taste, so many things about your physical being changes. And something as little as like I found out, thanks to my sister, actually, she was googling some things, and now we have more information than ever in this world. There are these like pills or like tablets that you take, and they make things a little sweeter, so it kind of helps balance out that kind of kind of metallic taste that I guess patients tend to have when they're going through treatment. So these are the kind of things that these organizations do. I mean, these groups have resources, whether it be documents that you can download with like tips and tricks, recipes for food. Again, just donating to the actual physical research itself. There are so many treatments that have come about in the last, like, honestly, like even just 5 years, not just for leukemia and lymphoma, but just every kind of cancer. Like, there are clinical trials that have been incredible. I met this amazing woman who told me that she thought that this was it for her. And thanks to a clinical trial that they've been able to sort of get approved through the FDA, she is now cancer free, and she has been for a few years. And now she goes and she tries to go to these facilities and these healthcare places, clinics, hospitals, and she tries to give that sort of encouragement to others. So I like to think that, because of these things, like, my mom was able to be with us longer than, they even thought. And it's never long enough, of course, but we're very thankful for them. And a lot of these organizations also help financially sometimes to some of these patients. And I don't know, and I hope, whoever that angel is, like, I know somebody helped take care of some of the things that my mom had pile on her as far as like medical bills. And there was somebody who actually was able to, like, we will never know who it is because they don't tell you, but they were able to help us. I mean, because as you can imagine, it's, if you saw those receipts, I mean, and Zach knows, like, it's an ungodly amount of money that goes into these treatments. And whether it's cancer treatment or follow-ups or, routine tests and things like that, it's a lot. It's very overwhelming.
I appreciate you sharing that. Again, sorry about your mom, Nicole, and
Thank you.
thank you for coming on. I know we've been trying to do this show all season, to talk about just the our team, but then also just what all this means to us. So I know it's been a lot. So I appreciate you sharing all that. But yeah, I think everyone realizes that cancer has touched probably everybody in some way, whether directly, a family member, a friend, a coworker. I mean, heck, if you even play fantasy football, I mean, I just named 2 players right off the top that have a blood cancer that we're talking about. It does impact so many people. And like you said, I don't think a lot of people think about all of that other stuff, when it comes to even, like I said, my father was very fortunate that he was able to fight it and win. But I mean, there's still side effects that you have to deal with for during the treatment, after, forever. There's certain things he can't do, because of getting chemo and stuff like that. So it does mean a lot for these different organizations to do so much research. And I mean, hopefully we do find a cure one day. So I really do appreciate LLS giving so much of what they collect. I would say, I can't say 100%, but I would say very close to 100% of the money goes directly towards research. And is not one of those charities where they collect and only give out like 10% or something like that you hear about. Yeah.
Yeah, I know they do. And I think sometimes, and I'm sure we've all seen them too, like for like breast cancer, like the Susan G. Komen here. I know they're really big here in Central Florida, especially. Because I know there's a lot of people who like hesitate too. And listen, being one of them, like, I love volunteering. I love giving my time because I was always so hesitant to donate money and then not know where it was going. I was one of those people who would rather put like together like little food packs, little hygiene packs, and volunteer. I don't know, buy blankets, whatever it may be, depending on the cost. But I can honestly say now, being on this end, like, it's there are certain organizations that really do put forth that effort, and they really do invest the money where it needs to go. And I know LLS is one of them. One of my sister's friends was diagnosed, and thank goodness she actually was able to beat it. And I know that she was very thankful for a lot of the stuff that they did for her. And from what I heard, I'm not as close to her as my sister is, but I know that there were a lot of people involved that were able to help, right? Like, whether it was, emotionally, physically, financially, etc. Like, these organizations really do want to make a difference, and that's why we we were so excited to sort of represent them. And that's why when Zach posted about it, I'm like, oh, this is such a good cause, not thinking anything. I was just like, I'm just going to donate. This is great. And then he messaged me, he's like, hey, by the way, we are going to put this team together. I'm like, well, guess it's time to brush up on some football, which I have, which has been fun. Honestly, it really has.
That's a great segue because it's hard to transition in between these different topics. But I guess what was it like co-managing a team? Because I'll be honest, this is the first time I've ever co-managed a fantasy league, and I've been playing now for what 16, 17 years.
Yeah, well, I think it's funny. So I feel like I was thinking about this earlier and I'm like, well, I guess I always have co-managed because since I don't know that much about like football, like I always would be like, hey, you know, I would ask somebody, whoever was around me, like my friends, my guy friends are very well versed. So I'd be like, hey, who can I do that? Or hey, Ben, like, can you help me put together? And like usually somebody else would pick either like certain players or positions and explain to me how it works. But for me, it's great because I not only am I having fun with a friend, but like I'm learning something new, right? And like I said, I've grew up watching soccer, real football. And they, and that's a different, like that's a totally different game. And it's a little bit easier, I feel like, to like pick up on what's going on in that kind of sport. Same with like baseball, for example. Like I grew up watching a lot of baseball with my family. My dad's was much more on the baseball side. My mom enjoyed the soccer part, but it's just fun. It's fun for me. And I think for me too, because I'm the kind of sports fan that like, yes, I have my favorite teams, but like I'm more of like I like players, right? So like it was funny when we were talking about it and I was like, Zach, we have to pick Stephon Diggs because little fun fact, I'm the Bills have sort of turned my life upside down in the last year. I got a new job and I've become a little bit more so involved in their bubble because one of the brand that I work for is one of their sponsors. So it's been kind of cool to learn more about the Bills because like it comes up at work a lot, right? So that kind of helped out in both senses that I'm like, okay, well, it's kind of cool because I'm learning about it in like my fantasy league, but then I also like I have something to talk about at work. I'm in the beer industry, so like a lot of it's very commonplace, very male dominated industry. So like they're always talking about football, especially since the season started. We sponsor the Bills, so definitely a big sort of like topic of conversation. But no, it's a lot of fun, and I like the fact that like literally I could just be like, hey, what does this mean? So if we pick this position, like what does this mean? Like how many of these, because obviously how you, like you said, it was mostly flex positions, but I remember 2 years ago when we did the one at work, you taught me a lot about like what, because ours was a little bit more structured, right? And we had to pick this many this many that. And I would be like, I would just roll over in my chair, Zach, what does this mean? Like, who is this? Like, what do I trade here? I didn't mind Zach winning, but everybody else I had to like crush them. So which luckily I had again beginner's luck, but I think it's been cool. Like I just enjoy being able to like be like, hey, what does this mean? Because I think sometimes too, I find that with some of my friends, they do leagues or things of the sort, like whether we're playing in real life something or like it's any kind of game or things like that. They're just like so in like competition mode and I'm like, guys, I don't know what's happening, can somebody like teach me what's going on? So I will say, and I said this earlier when I was having lunch, I was like, this is the most I've known about American football than I have my entire life, and it's pretty cool because I know what's going on. I'm not just holding a beer having a great time just yelling when everybody else yells. I'm good at faking it till I make it, but now I kind of get it, which is good.
Oh, that's awesome. And it was a lot of fun to do this because I also had to think too, like I've been doing this for a while. And not saying that I know everything. Clearly, we didn't win the league. But I have certain strategies and I have certain things that I just do, and I have a method to how I do waiver wire and all that kind of stuff. And so I had to make sure that I was really like connecting with you and explaining things of one, letting you make some decisions too, obviously, because we're co-managing and this is really supposed to be your team. But then also at the same time, like trying to teach you, like you said, because you wanted to learn more. You were all about like, hey, teach me. I want to learn more. I was like, perfect. I'm happy to explain anything. So it was fun just being like, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Here's my thought process. What do you think? What do you want to do? And then just over time you were picking up more like, hey, we should just do this. I'm like, oh, perfect. Yeah, let's do that.
Well, and I remember you were like, you messaged me and you're like, hey, I'm going to be gone. Can you just keep an eye out on like, if we have to switch anything out? I was like, oh no, it's time. But I think we did pretty well. I think we did okay. I think that's outside from the injuries, and there were a couple, I think maybe a couple people on bye week or something. But I feel like I figured it out. But no, that was so funny. I remember getting the text and I was like, oh no, what if I do something and then like we're done for. But no, it was so much fun, and it was kind of cool too, because like it was one of those things that and I know that this is something like I think it was you who told me a couple years ago when we did the one at work. It was so funny because I was like, I found myself like paying attention to like, oh wait, like the Packers play today, and I know we have like 2 players that are in the Packers. Like, what does this mean? And like I would be watching the games, and everybody laughs at me because like everybody who knows me knows that like I wouldn't even say like it's a top 5 sport of mine, like out of all the sports that I follow. And it would be funny because I'd be like, ooh, oh, come on, Diggs. Come on, Diggs. I know you want to score one more time. Come on, I need those points. And like everybody's just laughing because they're like, who are you? Like, who is this Nicole and where did you find her? But no, it was cool. And I think for me too, again, like because of work, I've had to follow sort of what's going on because like a lot of my team, like we're kind of spread around the US, but our home office is in Buffalo. So we're huge, like no matter what team you like, everybody is sort of pro Bills, right? Because as the Bills do well, that means people are drinking more, which means we're doing all right with our brand. But it's just so funny because like I would be in like these meetings on Monday mornings, right? And there's always Monday morning meetings, and they'd be talking about something. I'm like, oh, yep, I saw that. That's crazy, man. Like that game was neck and neck. Like it was a tight game, and they're like, oh, nice, and they were like all impressed. I'm like, yes, let's go. But it was cool. It's cool to be able to participate. I think sports for me in general, like that's what I love about sports, right? Like I'll watch anything. I really will. I'll go to any live sporting event of any sort. Like, I mean, for goodness sakes, I was like, I did curling. I learned how to curl because I was watching it and I thought it was interesting. I think like coming up in like a couple months, there's like what is it called? The Tim Hortons Briar. It's like the big competition that they do. And I'm like, man, I kind of want to go. But it's just kind of cool because like to me, sports is like a very uniting thing. I think because again, like I know some of you probably were following the World Cup, even if you don't follow, football, but it's so cool to see like people come together, right? For like one sort of uniting sort of cause, no matter who you follow, it doesn't matter. Like people like to get together, people like to be with their friends and family, people like to have a drink and like have to like good food. And that to me is like what sports are all about. But I think it's even more so, it's a little bit more so on the fun side when you like know what's going on and you kind of have some sort of stake in it, I guess. When I'm watching I mean, these past couple months have been a little up and down for obvious reasons. And so I didn't watch the World Cup like I normally do because, a little bit of more difficult things were going on. But man, even when we were in the hospital, like we had it on the TV, and I was able to watch the last few games. I'm honestly, I watched most of the games. I really did. But as far as like, just like, I mean, watching that final, neither of those teams were the teams I wanted to win. I'll just be completely honest. But I was just so invested. And it was so funny because like I had some family in town still at that point, and like we were just all like into it. Like this family friend of ours, she was crying. Like she was literally crying that Argentina won. And I think that's like the thing that's so special about sports, that like it's something that ignites like that emotion in us. I mean, some people, unfortunately, not the best emotions get brought out, as I'm sure we have all seen in social media lately. But I think in general though, like it's such a cool thing to go, like even like our local sports teams, right? Like I'm a huge Orlando City fan. And whether we're doing great or not, like I am out there like having a great time. I'm having a beer. I'm cheering with my friends. Like we're having a great time. And Zach, you have to come to a game with us this year for real.
Absolutely.
I feel like we always miss each other. But it's so fun. Like, and I'll have season tickets, like going to like, I went to UCF and it's very convenient because it's the university here. So like going to those games, like it's just so fun to just kind of get in the atmosphere. And so I think for me, it was kind of cool, especially doing this again, like understanding what everybody else was so hype about. Cause like I would get it like by association, I would get excited, but like I was like, man, this is awesome. Like everybody's pumped and I'm pumped because I know what's going on. So it's pretty cool. I've
awesome.
had so much fun.
I think one of my favorite memories of our season was actually the draft. So for Pros with Joes, we had the entire the entire league. So it was 14 teams. So up to 28 of us, excuse me, if you were able to join in, we did a Zoom while we were drafting on Sleeper. So it was just a lot of fun because obviously I've been consuming content for years for fantasy football, and then I've been creating content for almost 2 years now. So it was awesome to be considered a pro, and it was such a fun division. But for you, Nicole, you are not a mainstream content consumer, so it was a lot of fun to kind of tell you who was in our division because we had some really big names. I'm not going to name drop anybody because I don't want to make anyone feel bad that isn't who I'm talking about, but it was just a fun division in general. But it was really fun for me to be like, oh yeah, like this person does this and this, and you're like, oh, that's really cool because like even I was geeking out about getting to interact with everybody on Zoom, and so it's just
And
cool
I
that
had no
you,
idea.
yeah, you
I
were
literally had no
completely
idea. I
unaware.
was like, "Oh, this is a fun. I get to do like a fantasy league." Because again, we had done the one for work, so like that was just like a silly thing that we were just all being ridiculous about and like threatening each other about like, "Oh, I got you this week. Like you're gonna go down." And then I jump on the Zoom, and I remember I think I don't know what I was doing that day, but I just remember I was like on my phone because I couldn't be home on the computer, and I'm like scrolling, and he's like texting me like, and this is the guy talking is this, that woman is this, like this person is that, and I'm like, oh my god. And I remember turning around, I was like, I don't know what I got myself into. Like, I'm like, these people are serious. Um, oh my goodness. But again, like that was the cool thing about it. Like even like the little like chat in the league, like in the on the app, like it was so funny because it was just so cool to see everybody interacting because everyone was on the same page, right? Like sort of on that same excitement level, same wavelength. And I think also it was so cool to see that um everybody was playing for something, right? And I think that's so important. Um, I'm not one to like fangirl. Like I'm not just one of the I when it comes to celebrities, like athletes and things like that, like if I meet somebody cool, like cool. Um I've luckily had like a job that allowed me to be at a place where a lot of celebrities would come, right? And so like I would see people from time to time. Like that's such a cool story to tell. But to me though, I get so impressed by people who have a platform and that they utilize that platform for good, for charity, for putting out the word about something good to help others. Because again, you don't know what people are going through until you sort of like, even if you never put yourself in their shoes or never have to experience it, like it's so cool to have people like sort of resonate. And I think that's something I was actually talking about this last night. When it comes to Stephon Diggs, like because I've had to sort of keep an eye sort of on the Bills and I've had to work some tailgates and events and fan things. You become familiar because I also don't want to like show up to something and not be familiar with what everybody else is talking about, especially when I'm the one who's representing a brand, right? And so I've gone full force, like looking up stuff about Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and all this stuff. And like I I was so touched, and I'm sure you guys have seen because I think it resurfaced again because they met up again. But his meetings with the little boy Aiden, and to me that is so special. And I know that like a lot of people, like yeah, they say they do this for the publicity, and they do it for like the sort of like, oh look, they're doing something nice. But sometimes it's just such a genuine thing that like, so what, it's being put on social media, so what, there's a video, so what, is giving them that like little boost, but they're still doing something kind for somebody who would have never thought they would experience something like that. And for those of you who haven't seen, he's had this little like this little boy, he's so cute. And I forgot what I don't know if you remember what the first sort of interaction they had was, but he's just like a
I want to
little,
say it was during maybe training camp,
I
like
think so.
preseason.
Yeah. He's just like a cute little. His name is Aiden. He's this little boy. He's a huge Bills fan, and I want to say, yeah, I think it was training camp because obviously during something like that, there's significantly less people than a regular game, and basically like he's seen this little boy a couple times, and recently he found out that the little boy's dad passed away, and I was in tears. I was like ugly crying when I saw this video, but it was Diggs got these custom shoes made for this little boy with a picture of him and his dad like painted on the shoes, and he signed them and he gave them to him as like a Christmas present. And this little boy, like, I mean, and when you go through something like that, no matter how old you are, obviously it's very impactful. But I feel like being, obviously he's a little boy, he just lost his dad, like you saw, like he was like a little grown up. It was so sweet, like you could tell he was feeling very grown up emotions, and he didn't even know what to do, and he's just crying. And the cutest thing was like at the end of the video, Diggs goes, hey man, you gonna wish me good luck or what? Because he's like crying, he's very touched. And I think that's so special. And It was so cool during the Zoom to see like these people who clearly have a platform, who have, I mean, I'm sorry guys, like I wasn't, not then, now I am. I didn't know who they were, nor, I was not the demographic necessarily like that followed them, or, because again, this is something that I'm still sort of learning about. But it really, really warmed my heart, and that I got even more excited to participate when I saw that everybody was playing for a cause. And everybody was so committed to like raise awareness, raise money, and have fun doing it, because why shouldn't you, right? So I thought that was really sweet. But yeah, no, that was super cool. It was so funny. Like, and Zach, I'm sure, was just like, oh my gosh, because he's telling me who all these people are. I'm like, oh, and I'm like little by little realizing like, oh, this is serious. Like, oh man. So yeah, that was fun.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Nicole. So for those of you who are not watching live, you can catch us on YouTube. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to Triple Play Fantasy. It's a great way to support us. If you're listening to the podcast, make sure you follow it so you don't miss any great episodes. But we are recording this right before Monday Night Football with the Bills. So hopefully
Bills.
Stephon Diggs does well. I hope you guys won a lot of championships this year. If not, make sure you follow us in the off season, because that is really when you get so much more content to get yourself ready for the season to hopefully win that championship next year. So with Triple Play Fantasy, we still have you covered in the offseason for football, but we are just ramping up baseball content as it gets closer to their in season. And we always have basketball content going on right now as well. That is why it's Triple Play Fantasy. So I appreciate you coming on, Nicole. Thank you all out there. I had a blast this season. It was great to create content for you all. So we will be taking a little bit of a break as we get into the off season, but there'll be plenty of content coming out. So like I said, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss us when we come back again. But thank you all, and have a good one, Nicole.